Good morning, sir. How are you doing?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing good. We are talking. The movie has literally come out last night. It's already doing pretty well. What kind of mood are you in?
I'm good. I'm excited. It's finally out. Waited 5 years for this weekend, and I'm excited for people to see it on the big screen.
Speaking of the big screen, I want to talk to you specifically about IMAX stuff. I am curious. You've probably traveled the world. Do you have a favorite IMAX theater?
That's a good question. I'd say the one that I like going to is the one I go to most, which is the Mastering Theater here in Playa del Rey, which you know well. But that's where you go to check your film and make the adjustments for IMAX. And it's small in terms of seating for an IMAX, but it's in their headquarters, and it's always an exciting time to go there because it means you're getting close.
You've obviously seen a lot of movies in IMAX. Do you have a favorite movie experience of like going to see a movie in IMAX and just a great experience with, do you have a favorite movie moment?
The one that comes to mind is one of my first IMAX experiences, which was probably at a science center in the 80s. And I can't remember which film it was, but I remember the shot was like a race car going across the desert. And then it cut to a POV on the front, and all of a sudden the camera went off a cliff and you were flying, and the camera like tilted down. And I remember the feeling of like losing your stomach while sitting in a movie theater. And that was probably one of my first IMAX experiences, and one that certainly made a huge impression.
It's funny you say a racing car because I think that's what you're doing next. So maybe that's been with you since you were a kid.
Yes, and finally get to fulfill yet another childhood dream.
Listen, a lot of people are going to have choices on where to see Top Gun Maverick. There's a lot of different theaters that are showing it. What did you do to make Top Gun Maverick such like an IMAX experience?
Well, we have almost an hour of the film is in full IMAX format. Which is mostly the flying scenes. You'll get to experience in a IMAX filling aspect ratio. So that's going to be something you can only get in an IMAX theater.
And for people that don't realize, I believe that it's like an extra 26% of the screen fills in. Could you sort of talk about that?
Yeah, it's typically most of the film, is at a 2.39 to 1 aspect ratio, the widescreen aspect ratio, which is, I think is great for the drama on the ground. It's keeps those dramatic scenes intimate. But when we go into the air, yes, you get 26% more. The black bars on the top and bottom of the frame disappear, and you get a kind of vision filling image that will really capture the experience of being in one of these airplanes.
I believe you use the Sony Venice IMAX cameras. Can you talk about why you use those cameras?
Well, the Sony Venice is a large format camera, so it has a larger sensor than a 35 millimeter film camera. It allows them to pack more pixels into it. So it's a 6K sensor. I found the Sony cameras, I've shot every film with Claudio. We've always used the Sony camera going back to Tron Legacy. And I just find that the way it reproduces color is very natural, and it's just worked for our style. So this is the latest iteration, and it comes in a model called the Rialto that allows it to go to a very small form factor, so that we could fit 6 of them in the cockpit of the F-18 with the actors. So what you're seeing on screen was captured for real. The result is you're going to not only get the sense of speed and light and sky and movement that you get from being in an airplane, but you're going to actually see the forces on their bodies as they pull G's flying in these amazing machines.
You mentioned you have 6 cameras, and an F-18 cockpit is not very large. Can you sort of talk about the camera and how you can actually put it in the cockpit?
Well, the camera allows you to separate the recorder from the lens. So by separating it, the lens is small enough that we figured out a way to mount 6 of them in the cockpit and hide the recorders down in the cockpit where typically they have other equipment. So we had the Navy strip out all the equipment they didn't need to fly the plane, and we stuffed camera gear in those places. And if you look really closely while you watch the movie, you'll see little camera wires running along the edge of the cockpit, which we just left in there because we just thought it was cool to see, the gear that we used to shoot the film.
And what's funny is most people who are going to watch it are just going to think that's gear that's part of the plane.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. So that's why it didn't bother me, but it's proof that we did shoot it for real.
Did you ever think, you mentioned that the dramatic scenes you wanted to be in the normal screen. Did you ever think about shooting the entire movie in IMAX?
Well, we do capture the whole film full frame. So we have that ability to open the whole film if we wanted to. But that extra headspace for those dramatic scenes to me didn't help. It was good to kind of keep it more intimate and then open up the film for the aerial sequences. So that's the choice we made.
So you're saying that when you're shooting the movie in IMAX like this, it doesn't change what you're doing on set at all. It's just a question of what you're doing in the editing room.
Yeah, it's when do you want to open up and use the full frame, and when do you want to be at the more classic 2:3:9 aspect ratio?
The flying sequences in your movie are so incredible, and I've never seen anything like it. Do you think that this film could have been made like a year before you shot it? Or was it only because like the technology of the cameras were like meeting you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, before the Rialto, I don't think we would have been able to fit 6 cameras. It probably would have been 1 or 2. So the amount of coverage would have been less. We wouldn't have had much variety and as much choice in the edit to show different angles. So it would have been harder, and it just, I don't think would have been as good as what we were able to do with that camera.
Actually work directing the actors when they're in the cockpits with all these cameras around them? Was it one of these things where you're directing them before they go up, giving them instructions, and then looking at the footage when they get back down? Or how did that work?
Yeah, it's more like a play where you're doing a lot of rehearsal, and then when the performer goes up, they're performing on their own. So we would do every flight day, we would have a 2-hour brief with all the pilots, all the actors, me, Tom, Claudio, Eddie, our editor, and we would go through every single shot of the day in like this long, tedious briefing process. Then I would go down into the hangar with the actor and the aviator who are going to fly, and we had a mock-up of the F-18 cockpit built out of wood. That was an exact mock-up with all the gauges and had the switch for the cameras and had little mock-ups of where the cameras were. And we would sit there and rehearse for about an hour, everything they needed to do on their flight. And once we had that committed to like muscle memory, then we would send them up in the jet. They would shoot for an hour. They'd come back. We'd load the footage in. We'd all watch it together. And we'd cheer them when they did something right, and we'd give them notes when they did something wrong, and then we'd send them up in the afternoon and do it again. So it was a very tedious process that, over a 14-hour workday, you might just get a minute or 2 of usable footage, but what you did get was something you couldn't get any other way.
So I'm curious, what is it like mastering a movie in IMAX? Can you sort of compare what is it like mastering Spiderhead to, say, Top Gun Maverick?
Yeah, well, Top Gun is something that you will go to that theater I was talking about in Playa del Rey, and you'll put the picture up on the 90-foot screen, and you'll make adjustments to potentially the color, the brightness, the grain structure, things that you need to pay attention to when you're looking at something that large. Spiderhead, I mastered that on a more traditionally sized movie screen because that's the largest it will be seen. So it is slightly different, but in terms of my approach to making it, I don't frame for a streaming title versus an IMAX title. I try to, I think my style is just kind of to try to tell the story with the best shots I can come up with.
What is it like after spending years making a movie, sitting in the IMAX theater, mastering the film, and realizing, like, do you ever second guess, oh my God, do I want this a little darker? Do I want this a little brighter? Like, how much are you in your head when you're mastering a movie?
Very much. You end up doing a pass through the film and then going away for a couple days and coming back and doing it again, because you definitely always have those voices in your head as you think about things, and always tweaking up to the last minute. That's just the nature of filmmaking.
I mean, it's literally like what people don't realize. It's the director acting as a painter. You're literally painting the movie.
Yeah, you can affect it a lot in the grade. I mean, hopefully at that point you've got a pretty good sense of what it is you're going for, even if it's a rough version in the Avid. But I like to do it with Claudio, next to me, since he's the cinematographer and we shot it together. And yeah, it's fun. It's really, for me, it's a fun part of the process.
If you could ask IMAX to design a new camera or cameras to help you as a filmmaker, when you're filming a movie, what would that request be? Smaller
is always better. Especially for a movie like this, for the movie I'm prepping now, which is dealing with cars, very fast cars on a racetrack. Trying to get cameras in places, interesting places, give the audience perspectives they've never had before. Smaller, lighter is always a good thing. Is the 6K chip that's in the Venice camera, like, do you need a chip that's better quality, or is it literally just about shrinking the camera with the current chip that you're using? I think the quality is there. I mean, the projection format now is 4K, so we're already have more resolution than we need, which is good, in case you want to, blow into something a little bit. You want to have that extra resolution, but yeah, it's just about getting if you can get it down to just a sensor and a lens, that would be ideal, because you can put it anywhere. As you know, I love the IMAX format and think it's the way to watch movies. Do you see yourself in the future with, like, the movie you're working on now and things down the road? Do you think IMAX will always be a component that you would like to, collaborate with? Absolutely. The great thing about an IMAX theater is when you walk into it, the picture is going to be bright enough. The sound is not going to be turned down at all. It's going to be loud. The quality of the experience is maintained across all their theaters. So you're not going to get a bad experience. You're going to get a reference quality experience. And that's what I think every director wants, is the audience to see what he or she set up during the finishing process, and that they're going to see the same thing you did. On that note, I'm just going to say congrats on making such an incredible movie. And I really do hope everyone chooses to see it in IMAX, because it's a spectacular experience. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.